And then there were 10. The home and away season is done. Only 11 games to go in 2026. The All-Australian squad has just dropped. Time to analyse who should be in the final 23 and dissect who is the stiffest to miss out on the 46. Zack Butters is returning home, but where? And Mark McVeigh set for his first coaching gig at his old club. It's Monday, August 24. I'm Josh Gabelich, and I'm joined by Kel Twomey, thanks to DD. Kel, we are finally through the home and away season. 5 weeks to go. 10 teams left.
Can't wait for it, Josh, which of course means it's awards season. And the AFL awards are on Tuesday night, and we've just freshly received the squad of 46 players for the All-Australian selection squad there. So what do we think of it? What's your first impressions?
Well, let's dissect it, because we expected to get this last week. We know why we didn't get it in the end. Fremantle had the most players selected, 8 in the squad of 46. Brisbane had 6. Hawthorn had 5 in the end. As you touched on, came out just minutes ago. We expected more from Sydney. We know why we didn't get it. But Charlie Curnow, who won his 3rd Common medal yesterday, was included in that 46, along with Clayton Oliver, one of only 2 players that moved clubs last October that's in the All-Australian squad. But when it comes to the key forwards in the final 23, it's going to be intriguing to see how they go.
Who do you pick? Because Ben King's right up there. Charlie Curnow gets a shot. Jai Amos is hard to stop as well. We know how good Josh Tracy's been throughout this season. Who are your 2, maybe 3? Knowing as well that Jack Gunston's been phenomenal again. Who do you go with?
You didn't mention Logan Morris there.
I didn't. I don't know if he gets in. I mean, he finished 2nd in the Common medal, so he deserves to be right there.
Is Charlie Curnow a lock?
I think he is.
Yeah,
I think he is. He deserves to be in there. Look, you can't say that trade has been anything other than a success. And
so much pressure on him.
I think the second half of his year was better than the first, and we wait to see, of course, how his final series goes to really mark the success of that trade in some ways. But I think overall that's been a great selection for them at the Sydney Swans. For me, I'm looking at the guys who missed out. So Harry Sheasel, I think, is the unluckiest not to be in the squad.
Cannot believe he's not in the 46.
Not in the squad. Now, there's a lot of Collingwood supporters out there who will be on Instagram right now talking about Billy Frampton. They won't be happy. They won't be happy. This has been a movement. This has been a Billy Frampton movement, and they will be shocked to not see him in there. Sam Walsh, I think, could have got in there. Maybe even Jagger Smith. One Carlton player was interesting, given we're about to talk about the Blues later on, but just how much of a force they were in the second half of this season. Only Patrick Cripps in the squad. And Harley Reid was the player with the most Coaches Association votes who didn't make the squad. So a couple of names there. Kyle Lohmann as well, another one. The Lions had 6 in there, could have easily had a 7th.
So you mentioned Billy Frampton then. Let's have a quick look at the key defenders, because a lot of experience in there. Harris Andrews, Cal Wilkie, James Sicily, Alir have all been All-Australians before. They're all in that 46. Alex Pearce has had a phenomenal year. He's in the squad as well. Then we've got the next generation in Connor O'Sullivan. An amazing blend of experience and youth there.
Could Tom McCartan have been in the squad?
He's stiff, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's probably another one that I look at and think he couldn't have...
Jack Silvani's another one. Couldn't
have done too much more in that post. I'm interested in the half-backs as well, because this is a spot that has rotated across the years. It's kind of been a gettable half-back position over a number of years. I think that's a spot where at the start of the year, if you're an informed half-back, you can quickly ascend to be on that half-back line of the All-Australian team. Who gets them for you? Because there are a few names that I thought are possibilities. Of course, Jarman Impey, Wayne Miller has been terrific. Lockie Ash is another. And Bodie Ulan, that was a bit of a surprising selection for me.
Agreed. Bodie Ulan was a surprise. I think Wayne Miller gets it. I think he deserves it. I know he's injured at the back end of the year. Jarman Impey has had a phenomenal 3 or 4 years and deserves selection. For a long time, Jack Sinclair and Lockie Whitfield have been locks, and they've been multiple All-Australians in the past. Lockie Ash has been an All-Australian. So it's going to be intriguing to see what they do there.
What will be fascinating on Tuesday night is the names that we think probably came in for the likes of Isaac Heaney, Chad Warner and Nick Blakey, because that's a reality of this situation over the past week. There are going to be 3 players, or at least 2. Maybe Nick Blakey was on the edges, but at least 2 of them I think were certainties to be in the All-Australian team, and who came in at last moment, because I spoke to a selector a couple of weeks ago. It was just about done. I mean, the squad was meant to be released last week. The week before that, they met at AFL House and worked through their squad. I must say as well, I'm ready to bring out the Murphy Reid victory lap again, because surely the Blazer is headed the way of Murphy Reid.
Are you locking him in? Because
I am.
As a second-year player, he's in this 46. Nick Watson, as a third-year player, is in the 46. Both of them feel like they'll be in.
I think so, yeah. I think they should be, and they will be.
A couple of smaller Blazers, but there are 3 ruckmen in the 46. Grundy, Gawn and Jackson. They all going to be in the 23?
No. I'm going to say 2, and I think it'll be Gawn and Jackson.
Let's move on. Zack Butters is in the squad of 46 and could be a 3-time All-Australian by tomorrow night. He might be a 4-time best and fairest winner in the coming weeks, but he will be at another club by mid-October. You reported this afternoon that he has informed Port Adelaide of his decision to explore his free agency rights. He actually spoke on the Powers website a short time ago.
Yeah, I've made the decision to head home. It's obviously been one that I've wrestled with for a while now, and it's been quite tough to get to the bottom of it. And I'm probably at a stage in my life where I'd like to get back around some family and friends and enjoy some more time with them and cherish their moments with them. But in saying that, I've also really enjoyed my time at the footy club and here in Adelaide, and it's felt like home for me as well.
All right, you've covered this forensically across, I reckon, the last 18 months. Give us a state of play on what happens from here.
Well, he has to eventually get to a point of narrowing it down, but the 4 clubs are still chasing him, of course, being Geelong, the Western Bulldogs, Richmond and Collingwood all have club record offers on the table for him. So it's not going to be about money. It never has been about money for Zack Butters. What a superstar he has been and how well he has played this year from a performance point of view, but also how well he's handled his contract year. I don't think I've seen anyone front up as much as Zack Butters has to the media, to the press conferences, to post-game interviews, and then also perform on the way through as well. So, yeah, I think he will become an All-Australian for the 3rd time on Tuesday. Would have won his 4th straight best and fairest as well, if not for that ankle injury, which he did try and get back from. AFLCA Player of the Year in 2023, most courageous player a couple of times in the competition. Someone said to me today about him being picked 12 back in the 2018 draft. And you have to look at it like this sometimes and think, this guy wasn't always like he is now. He was skinny, he was scrawny, he had a bung shoulder coming through his under-18 season. And they said to me, the little man turned out to be a giant. And I think it's a great way to describe how much of a giant he's been for the Port Adelaide Football Club and what a loss it'll be for them. But the pull of home to his friends and to his family, like he said there, was so strong. And he could have pushed for it last year, but has been exceptional this season. I think it's going to be the biggest trade decision we've seen since Chris Judd moved to Carlton in 2008. He's done the meetings, he's got all the information. Now it's over to him to make a big call, and he has clubs sweating on it, but he also has clubs working through how to get deals done and what that means to his decision-making process.
Pick 12 been a fantastic pick when you think Nazai Wanganeen-Miller was taking that pick only a few years later. Just one last one on Zack Butters. Have you got a read on when he'll make a decision? Because there's a lot of time between now and deadline day.
Yeah, there is. And look, this has been no surprise to Port Adelaide. So there's been obviously a lot of work along the way around what this could look like and what the deal could look like. And they've been pretty strong along the way that they were going to match whatever the offer would be and force a trade. The other option, of course, being free agency compensation, which would be pick 5. Geelong, we've spoken about being strongly placed over the past couple of weeks. Still, you have to make a deal happen, though. So these are the things that everybody is weighing up. But as we sit here on 24th of August, there's a long way to go until the end of the trade period in the middle of October. So lots to play out still.
The day after round 24 and the first free agency domino has fallen. Kel, last night you reported that Mark McVeigh is in the box seat to become the next coach of the Essendon Football Club. He came down to Melbourne today to meet with the Bombers board ahead of what is expected to be his unveiling as senior coach tomorrow. Take us through the latest when it comes to this appointment, because it's been almost 100 days since the club made the decision to part ways with Brad Scott. Dean Solomon has filled in as caretaker coach for the best part of 3 or 4 months. How's it got to the point where Mark McVeigh's in the box seat? Well,
as we speak, they're going through the final stages of their process, fronting the board on Monday to be endorsed as that candidate to be the Bombers' new coach. So they're adamant that they're going through their process still, but with none of the other contenders even contacted through Monday, an announcement coming on Tuesday now, it is heading the one way, and that's clearly for Mark McVeigh to be the man at Essendon. Considered a formality at this point, as we reported on Sunday. Sydney was still working through whether he would play any role in their finals series if he does get appointed over the next 24 hours and with that expectation. So Still some toing and froing there on what that could look like. I think the expectation most likely would be that he taps out, but still some work to do there on what that could look like. I want to look at what his big 5 priorities should be as the Bombers' new coach. So this is a club that has just had its worst year in arguably its history. 2 wins for the season. They've only ever recorded 2 wins in a season before. That was 90 plus years ago, and there was only 18 games that season. So on the numbers scale, it's their worst season in history. That's a big benchmark for a club of this sort of history. So where did they actually start? Because you'd have to say it's ground zero for Essendon. So what are the ways back? I think the first one is to fill the coaching vacancies. So there's so many spots to fill at the club all over, but the exits of midfield coach Ben Jacobs, forwards coach Cam Roberts, strategy coach David Rath, as well as, of course, the club psych Ben Robbins, football boss Dan McPherson, potentially also Dean Solomon, who was running the team defence before he was the interim coach. He's still undecided about whether he goes on to next year on the coaching panel. So they're in desperate need to find a head of development as well. So that, I think, needs to be the major priority in getting their development right. Number 2, Josh, I'm going with forget the backward Bombers. The second half of this year has been an awful watch, like an awful watch of games. And the Bombers turn back ways and sideways more than anyone, all the time. Champion data, I've got some stats today, shows that their percentage of forward kicks are the lowest of any team in the competition. So it's time to turn that around, literally, and be a forward-facing side. Andrew McGrath, when you get the ball, you go forward. Jacob Farrow, you can only kick forward. That's the team rule. Same for you, Archie Roberts. Adding a defensive element to that game plan as well, I think, is necessary as they build up that defensive structure.
They need a key defender, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And this is the number 3 for me. Get in front of players. Start your sell. So they met with Jed Walter on the day Brad Scott got sacked. That was never going to be an overly appealing sell, is it, when you just moved on your coach? Since then, they've tried to woo Lockie Neal, Scott Pendlebury, Touk Miller as some experience, but that's without a coach. And then there's Luke Pedler, Charlie Ballard, Artie Jones, others who are in their sights, but they finally have a coach now to sit in front of them and sell the dream.
Matt Rosa feels like he's been busier than any other list manager in the competition in terms of the amount of players that he's considered across the last 3 or 4 months.
I agree with that. They've had a crack, and you can't deny that. But also he's
not just stars, but fringe players, role players, everyone.
100%. Jack Bowe's another one you've reported about as well, with the interest there. So, but I also think it's been a very hard task for him as the list boss to come and say to players and player agents, come down, have a look at us when we don't have a coach. So that's a challenge. Number 4. Make sure everyone's on the same page. So how long is it going to take? Where are we at? Be honest about where it actually is looking like and how long it's going to take, because it is going to take a long time. Don't divert from the strategy. Keep pumping games into the youth because you don't have many options otherwise. And a positive this year, I must say, was the amount of games put into Farrow, Sharp, Roby, Kondo Giannis, Artemis, El Ashkar. And another big draft is coming, which the coach will have to be a part of that. And number 5 is finding the joy. So making Essendon fun again has to be a priority, but it's easier said than done when you're losing, of course. But this starts with the calls on senior players who've wanted to move. And go ahead with the Zach Merritt deal this year. Do it. Go ahead with the Jordan Ridley deal if he finds a taker. Same for Darcy Parish. Put the asset on Ben Mackay and say, we're treating next year like a 1-year deal. Let's see if you want it and where do you want to be with your footy career. Just on Jordan Ridley, I've got an idea.
Give it to me.
So North Melbourne are interested in him. There's interest there, but what does it look like? So Essendon's money is their only advantage at the moment. He's on $800,000 or so for the next 3 years. Why doesn't Essendon say, hey, we'll pay all of his wage or 90% of it, and we'll give you a second round pick as well, but let's give it in exchange for pick 5. So basically buy the pick using Jordan Ridley's money and use that to your advantage. Got to
get creative. 5-point plan that's as comprehensive as I expected. Just one last one on Mark McVeigh, because
I had a few more, but I just thought I'd leave it at 5.
Yeah, this is not Essendon radio. Matthew Lloyd acknowledged on Access this morning that this decision will divide fans who are just that obsessed with James Hird and bringing him back to that club. You've been out to the hangar in recent months. You've seen the protesters that are out the front. Even as recently as only a few weeks ago, they stay at the players' entrance, the staff entrance. That's not going to go away. Do you see this as being a concern at all for Mark McVeigh in his first pre-season?
Nah, concern is a strong word. I would say it's just a reality.
Yeah,
I think
he's aware of it.
He's aware of it. Like, him and James Hird are as tight mates can be. So it's not as if he went into this process not knowing that if he did land the job that this would be a reality. But wins change everything.
Certainly do. Stick with us on AFL Daily. Coming up next, Andrew Dillon addresses the Sydney situation for the very first time. And just how far can Josh Fraser take the Blues next month?
Hey, it's Marcus Bontempelli from the Western Bulldogs, and you're listening to AFL Daily. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
The invitations for the Brownlow will be going out this week. Those players won't be invited. They are still eligible for the Brownlow, but they're under a club suspension, which goes until the end of the season.
Welcome back to AFL Daily. That was the voice of Andrew Dillon speaking at the finals launch in Richmond earlier today. It's the
you
first
were there.
time I was there.
How was it?
It was interesting because wildcard for the first time, there's still some sceptics in the room, but a lot of excitement around what this weekend can do. I mean, it has added a lot more intrigue to the final month of the home and away season, clearly, and 2 massive games to come at the MCG this weekend. Yeah. But for the first time, we heard him speak about the ongoing investigation involving the Sydney Swans and those 5 players. Last Wednesday, the Swans ruled them out for the remainder of the season. Club imposed suspension. Then later on Wednesday, the AFL ruled them ineligible for All-Australian selection. So 3 players that we expected to be probably in the team weren't picked at all in the end. And today, as we heard then from Andrew Dillon, they won't be invited to the Brownlow medal. They'll still be eligible. We expect Isaac Heaney and Chad Warner to both poll strongly like they have in the past, but they won't be there.
No, and that's probably expected, isn't it? I don't think they'd want to be there under the circumstances either at this rate. So, I mean, this is a fast-moving story in a lot of ways because the developments have continued to come, but also there's an element of sitting back and waiting to see what the next steps are. And this is separate to the legal ramifications and the allegations that are out there. Of course, we're talking about the football elements of this, and the football side of things on Sunday saw the Swans in one of the more emotional scenes we've witnessed post-game. Really showed the toll of the week on that football club and how much that football club is reeling from the events of last week. How far can they take that though? Because round 24 against North Melbourne is one thing. A qualifying final against Brisbane next week is certainly another.
Certainly. Now, Andrew Dillon wouldn't be drawn too much today in terms of the investigation, where it sits, when the AFL will become fully involved. But I think, Cal, it's worth exploring from a football perspective what it could mean for the trade period.
Yep.
Now that it's been just over a week since it was revealed what happened at the Pullman Hotel after round 23, let's explore it. What do you expect to happen? Because already there is some movement behind the scenes with list managers and agents exploring these 5 players and whether they'll be changing clubs come October.
I expect that, and that, as you say, has already begun. Yeah. Those phone calls, the questions, the information sharing, is there any possibility? Those type of things have absolutely already been raised about some of these players, and will continue to be raised in the coming weeks as the fallout continues on an emotional level, but also from a club level at Sydney, and they have to make some decisions themselves around can we bring these guys back in? Will the playing group be happy to do that? Would the players themselves be wanting to come back in under these sort of environments or to change things around? So, yeah, I mean, this is the reality, I think, of the situation out of last week, that clubs are sensing whether there's an opportunity because there are very good players in that group. So that's the reality from a club point of view. Rivals, and the Swans ultimately will have the decision-making process in their hands because they're all contracted players, aren't they? And we see what happens over the next few weeks.
Still a long time to go between now and deadline day.
Absolutely.
In about 8 weeks' time. But
there's 2, isn't there? Already the drums have started beating on in terms of Chad Warner, who's knocked back huge money in the past from West Coast, and those conversations I think would have already begun at West Coast about whether you progress and try and get in a year ahead of free agency. I think there was a confidence at West Coast that they'd be right in the mix for Chad Warner next year. And the other one being Nick Blakey, who of course has ties to Victoria, where his dad was a champion of North Melbourne previously, and obviously had the decision as an under-18 player. Do you go as a father-son to North Melbourne or go to the Swans, where you've been an academy player, where your dad then was a member of the coaching fraternity? So those are the 2 at the moment who are getting a lot of questions and calls from rival clubs and to agents to find out what's happened, where things sit, and what does it look like.
Just quickly, Chad Warner, the West Coast interest has been there from the moment he got drafted, out of contract next year, free agent next year. It's been an ongoing situation for the entire time he's been in Sydney. Do you expect Matt Clark and the Eagles to really mount a case between now and October?
Well, the thing is, I think with all these things, to mount a case, you also have to mount the case internally.
Yeah.
And that's got to be part of the decision-making process too. If you're going to go down that route, that'll require a lot of ticking off from board level because of what's happened over the past couple of weeks. So there's so many steps ahead, but that is the obvious link.
Complex situation. We'll be covering that on AFL.com.au across the coming months. Kel, I want to finish with Carlton because this time last week, Josh Fraser had just been appointed coach after Carlton clinched a spot in the finals. Quite remarkable to think that he took over at 1-8 when they parted company with Michael Voss. And since then, no team has won more games than Josh Fraser and Carlton. And what they did on Saturday in round 24 to beat Fremantle, who had won out really this year, been quite incredible what they'd done to finish in the minor premiership, 3 games clear on top of the ladder. What a performance. It has to be now discussed. How far can they go?
Just reading Riley Beveridge's reaction time for this week. And as you say, Carlton would have finished 2 points clear off Fremantle on top of the ladder, he says, had the season started when Josh Fraser took over. That is remarkable, isn't it?
Certainly.
And it's not been fluke. It's not been luck. It's been a lot of changes that have worked all at once, and we're seeing the culmination of that. And then in some ways, in that first 9 weeks of the season, there were some elements that were working, weren't there? There was just those second half fade outs and the last quarter disappearances that were obviously the real issue for Michael Voss under that period. But how far can they go? I think they enter this week as the favourite. If I'm Stephen King, I'm a bit nervous about how things are shaping up this week.
You didn't want to draw Carlton in a wildcard game, did you? The form team heading into this year's final series. All right, it's time to finish with Give Me Something.
Oh, you want some?
Hey?
You want some? Do you want some? I'll give it you.
What do you got for us, Cal?
All right, I've got 2.
2?
I've got 2. I'm allowed to do that?
I don't even have 1 right now.
That's why I'm going to buy you some time, Josh.
Thank you.
This is on behalf of our great producer, Paul Baston. He's got an eye for these things. So this is a little quirk of the final system. So he wants to know, and I'm his voice in this one, why isn't the qualifying and elimination finals week set up like wildcard week, where we shouldn't know the finals bracket already? So let's use an example. Wildcard week, the highest placed team, which is Geelong, awaits the lowest ranked winner. Now, we'll go through some details here. The qualifying and elimination week, though, is different. So under that example, if Fremantle lost their qualifying final, they already know under the allocated blocks that they're playing 5th v 8th in the semi-final. But they should be guaranteed playing the lowest ranked elimination final winner in that scenario instead. So they'd be somewhat punished for finishing first if they face 5th. But under this scenario that our man Paul's put through, they could actually just face the lowest placed winner. You with me?
I'm with you.
So that's a bit of a question. Might have to go ask AFL operations about what that is all about.
No, I love that. First time we've had the wildcard, obviously, and so much movement in terms of these first and second week fixtures that have all been finalised in the last 24 hours.
Did you think of something?
I have got something for you. It's slightly newsy, and it involves St Kilda, who are going through all their exit interviews today and tomorrow, Cal, before they go on break on Wednesday. Obviously, the season hasn't transpired the way they would have liked. We already knew that Tom De Koning and Jack Silvani would be booked in for shoulder reconstructions. They carried those injuries at the back end of the season. Toby Trevelyan is another one who carried an issue in both his feet across the entire season. Sort of reared its head across last pre-season, caused him issues to start the year. Had a 6-week block at the start of the year where he didn't play at all. He's in for surgery tomorrow on both feet, so he'll be in a wheelchair for the coming weeks.
Wow. And
faces 3 months on the sidelines. Former top 10 pick who hasn't had a great run at it just yet, 17 games in his first 2 years. So hopefully he can get over that and have a full pre-season and launch into next year. It's going to be one of those interesting names at St Kilda that's out of contract that we're going to follow pretty closely, I think.
So hang on, 2 minutes ago you didn't have Give Me Something, and then you've come up with a great story like that just out of the back of your head.
It's been bubbling away across the day. So there
Very
you go.
good, well done. And last one, I watched last night's Hawthorn West Coast game with a smile on my face because a few days ago I caught up with my man the Wizard for a story that will be on AFL.com.au.
Did you bring a photographer?
I did, James Wiltshire. Took some great photos of my hour with the Wiz having a coffee. And I just want to pluck up something that I was looking through the transcript before, and I did say to him, I feel like your marking's about to come back. And he said, yeah, I'm starting to think that I can start going for him again. And he said, my first game I went for a big mark and Choli put staples in the back of my head, so I'm a bit scarred from that. But last night he thought, stuff it, I'm going. And that was one of the great marks last night. That was
Mark of the year.
Gary Moorcroft-esque.
Yes. In style.
And in size and shape and in fall. Now, hopefully he landed a bit better because that mark probably ended up ruining Gary Moorcroft's career with his hip injury. But
I think the roof elevated Gary Moorcroft's mark.
Scott Lucas's right foot elevated as well. But what a player the Wiz is. That story will be out in coming days ahead of the final series. But it was good to spend an hour with the Wizard. And yes, the marking is back. And he if I'd written the story in time, we would have looked like a genius. But we can say it in retrospect.
You know, I love the details. Where'd you go, cafe-wise?
I went to Cafe 345 on Swan Street in Richmond.
There we go. It's all about the details, and that's all we have time for on this Monday edition of AFL Daily. We'll be back tomorrow with the Roundtable.